From the great state of Kansas, United States Senator Roger Marshall, Doc Marshall to you, joins me now. Welcome back, Senator. It's so nice to have you again on the program.
Michael, good morning from Capitol Hill. We're still here. I can't believe it.
Well, I know you're eagerly awaiting delivery of that $1.8 trillion Build Back Better plan so that you can put your imprimatur on it now that it's passed the House. Am I right or wrong?
Well, Michael, I know you're being sarcastic. I know your listeners are being sarcastic. We've already borrowed $3 trillion on top of our annual budget this year. I know it's being advertised as a $1.85 trillion bill, but really it'll be $4 trillion when it's all said and done. $4 trillion over 10 years. Inflation is out of control. When I go back home here later this afternoon, all I'm going to hear about is inflation, the price of gasoline, and vaccine mandates, by the way. And we're just really concerned that we're just throwing more gasoline on the fire. Joe Biden's got a tiger by the tail. That tail is on fire now. He's throwing gasoline on it. I just don't think Americans can take this inflation.
So $367 billion. That was the CBO scoring that came out yesterday. They said that's the amount that it will increase the deficit. The White House response to that is to say, well, that doesn't take into account the additional tax enforcement that we are seeking. What I notice, Senator, is that when those CBO numbers suit your argument, everybody embraces them as if they're gospel. Yeah. And when they don't, no matter which side it is, has an argument as to, well, you really don't take the CBO seriously, do you?
Yeah, Mike, it's that simple. And, the shoe will be on the other foot someday, and we'll be trying to support the score or say the score is worthless. I've only been here 5 years, but you would not invest your own personal money ever based upon the CBO score. I'll just say that. You would never invest your own money on it. And I just want to highlight the point you made about the IRS enforcement. Regardless of whether Joe Biden's right or wrong on this point, he's wrong on the policy. No Americans I've talked to want to double the size of the IRS. Nobody. They're gonna find some money, but it's not going to be from rich billionaires who are lawyered up, have 15 accountants. It's going to be people like my parents who do their own taxes, and they're going to go in there and audit my parents' taxes. And I bet they find $200 or $300 here, $200 or $300 there, and my parents are not going to hire a lawyer and accountant to represent them. They're just going to pay it because they're good citizens, right? This will be a tax on hardworking Americans, not on the rich and wealthy.
Senator Marshall, what gets all the attention are the Democratic efforts in the Senate coming from the White House and from colleagues to pressure Senator Kyrsten Sinema and Senator Joe Manchin to stay the course and vote along party lines, because, of course, this is going to get done, if it gets done, through reconciliation, which will be 50-plus Vice President Kamala Harris. What I'm interested to ask you is, because this never gets reported, what's going on from the other side of the aisle? In other words, do you have conversations with Senator Manchin? Do you engage Kyrsten Sinema and try and speak to them in a way that suits your interests?
Yeah, Michael, we have genuine relationships. Joe Manchin is a person I had dinner with every Tuesday night for 4 years before I would join the Senate. Joe and I had a friendly wager on the West Virginia-Kansas State football game this past week. And by the way, I won it. And he owes me some moonshine and some pepperoni rolls. So that's a good thing, right? We got back from our little holiday. We had a 10-day break. And I say a holiday. We worked harder back in the state than we do back here. And us freshman Republican senators line up with Kyrsten to find out what she wanted for groceries this week and what we might be able to bring food to her office to keep her staff happy. And, of course, we've already assigned the lawn mowing outside of Joe Biden's boat or Joe Manchin's boat that he lives in. So, look, we have regular conversations. Look, Kyrsten Sinema is one of the sharpest people I've ever met up here. She understands tax policy. So whether I'm talking to her about stepped-up bases or talking to her about taxing capital gains as ordinary income, she gets it. She understands the business side of this. And at the end of the day, those people represent folks that are just like Kansans, that don't like inflation and don't like their taxes being raised.
So what do you think the two of them will do now that the Build Back Better plan has passed the House?
Yeah, I think Joe Manchin's clearly said, let's take a breath, for crying out loud. Let's take a breath. Could we, it's like you've got a new credit card and it's just on fire. Do you have to max your credit card every chance you get? No, you don't. And I think Joe's hearing loud and clear from West Virginians that they don't want us to borrow any more money. They're much more concerned about inflation than they are adding more social programs. And I think Kirsten's in the same situation. I'm not naive to think that every person doesn't have a price. The president and Chuck Schumer can really make some sweet deal offers for West Virginia and Arizona. In the meantime, I'm going to do my best to maintain those positive relationships and make sure that they have someone, they know that somebody has their back. But it's no fun getting beat up by your own side. If you could just imagine being home and having your own family hating on you, that's what they're going through right now.
I had no way of knowing in advance that you'd be on my program just literally minutes after Build Back Better passed. Initially, what I wanted to talk about, and I want to shift gears and go there now, is COVID, because I see that you joined forces with Joni Ernst. That didn't surprise me, but also Kirsten Gillibrand and Dianne Feinstein. This idea of a 9/11 style COVID-19 commission. I also then took note of the fact that among the responsibilities, not the sole charge, but among the responsibilities will be to figure out the point of origin of COVID-19. What's this all about?
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing it up. It's just utterly irresponsible that we have not had an investigation into the origins of COVID. But really, I want your listeners to understand this is more than just the origins of COVID. We also want to understand the response to COVID, right? Whether it's the development of vaccines or the distribution of the vaccines. What did we get right? What did we get wrong? I was volunteering in an ICU in Southwest Kansas in March of 2020, and we had 13 ICU patients, but only 9 beds and 9 ventilators. So I was calling the White House on a Friday afternoon saying, please, Mr. President, get me ventilators. And Black Hawk helicopters showed up on Sunday afternoon with those ventilators. At the same time in New York, think about what was going on in New York in March of 2020. They were the tip of the spear, right? And that's one of the reasons I thought that Kirsten Gillibrand would be a great partner in this investigation. She's lived through 911. She's lived through the 911 investigation. So she knows when they set up that 911 commission, she knows what's worked and what hasn't worked. She's taught me so much about that commission already. And really, it's still going on. All these years later, she said that 10 years after, they were still discovering information. And she's in it for the long haul. Appreciate Senator Feinstein's support as well. And it does have to be a bipartisan project for this to work, and it has to be non-political as well. So the last point I'll say is this: we're going to set it up so the Democrats get 5 nominees, Republicans get 5 nominees. There'll be experts. Let's take it off of Capitol Hill and let those experts in their field, epidemiologists, people that understand supply chains better than I do, people that understand documents and all the secrecy and what should be let loose to the press, all those types of things. A declassification process. Let's let those experts figure this out, get it outside of the politics so we can protect future generations.
Knowing what you know, which is a great deal more, I'm sure, than what we in the public are aware of, does Dr. Roger Marshall think the point of origin was that Wuhan lab?
Yeah, Michael, I do. I think there's a preponderance of evidence that would suggest that this virus was leaked from a Wuhan lab. I don't know if it was made there or if it came from nature. I think that's probably the big argument. Unless we can find the DNA sequences, which China's hiding, we're not sure we're going to be able to find that out. But there's a preponderance of evidence that China was covering this up, at least since September of 2020, when Dr. Shi took a genetic lab bank offline. Shortly thereafter, China is hoarding PPE from across the world. This is the fall of 2020. And I could bring you several other points to your audience, but there was something called the Military Olympics in Wuhan, China, October 2020. There was no crowds in the stadium. This is a city of, about 10 million people. And it was like the city was dead already. And multiple veterans from hundreds of nations went home and were sick with now retrospectively what seems like a COVID virus. So we think that it's been covered up since the fall of 2020. And why we need that commission is just to go through all those nooks and crannies and confirm what I just said, right? I have an open mind. I do have a political bias here, right? You can't help but have an emotional bias, but I do think it originated in Wuhan, China.
Do you believe that in similar fashion to needing a 9/11 style commission to take a look at the point of origin of COVID and the other COVID-related subjects that you've identified, that we similarly need such a commission to investigate the events of January 6th?
I think we've kind of been down that road. Last time I counted, there was 12 or 13 investigations going on for January the 6th. Hundreds of people have been arrested. The Justice Department has a full-throated investigation. I think that I think Capitol Hill has spent a lot of time and money. I don't see there's a lot more to gain by having another January 9/11 commission style for that as well.
I might have agreed with you 3 months ago. I'm just shocked at how much we continue to learn. And I read all of these books. It's my job to read them, Senator. But Woodward and Costa in the book Peril, John Carl now from ABC with Betrayal. It just seems like there was so much more taking place behind the scenes, emanating from the White House, particularly that afternoon and at the Willard Hotel the night before, that it was not just people who got stoked on that particular day and stormed the Capitol, that there was a much more comprehensive plan afoot.
Yeah, and Michael, I got to tell you the question that no one has answered me from January 6th is President Trump asked to have the National Guard there. He asked for troops, and somebody in the House stopped that. And most likely it rose to the level of the Speaker of the House. So you're right, there's questions that haven't been answered, but I would say this. 750,000 Americans have died so far from COVID-19. 5 million, probably 10 million people worldwide have died from COVID-19. Like I said earlier, it's irresponsible that we have not done a full-throated investigation into the origin and the response to COVID-19.
I would simply say that they're not mutually exclusive. I would want you and your colleagues looking at both. But let me ask you this question about mandates, which you referenced earlier. Okay. Again, so timely that you're here, Doc, and I really appreciate it. Headline from the Washington Post today: almost a third of healthcare workers weren't fully vaccinated as of September. This is a glass half empty, glass half full, because in truth, the incidence of inoculation among healthcare workers is higher than society at large. I have to acknowledge that. But still, really, a third of people in healthcare aren't inoculated? My view, it should be mandated.
Yeah, Michael, I hear you loud and clear. And of course, I ran a hospital. I've operated a private practice. And I think, number one, the CDC is going to have to acknowledge natural immunity. Just a year and a half, these people were heroes, and now we're treating them like zeros. So these are people that ran to the sound of the battle. Going back to March of 2020, I was doing Zooms almost daily with healthcare workers from across the country saying, this is what we know. Thank you for being on the front line. And so many of those people got COVID, and now they're being treated like they're zeros, right? And the CDC has never acknowledged natural immunity. And from everything I've read, natural immunity is at least as good as the vaccine, if not better. It's going to prove to be longer lasting, especially against these variants. So I think that would be the first step, because probably 2/3 of those healthcare workers you're talking about have natural immunity. I'm not excited at all about any type of a federal mandate. I would leave it up to those individual hospitals to make those decisions. But respect where you're coming from.
So our daughter had a baby 6 weeks ago, maybe 7 weeks ago by now, and I was thinking about this story today. The baby had to spend weeks in the NICU because of a premature birth. Everything's great. Mom's doing great. But my gosh, as now a grandparent, my expectation is if you're in that NICU, you're fully vaccinated. And I'd kind of be horrified to find out if they weren't. I get your point, so long as the antibodies that you have are sufficient, because they wane over time. Mm-hmm. I mean, I understand your natural immunity point, and I don't discount it. But boy, if you haven't had it and you're making a conscious decision not to get it, that's just not the profession for you, in my opinion.
Yep. Again, I hear you loud and clear. So I ran a hospital before. So I would pick the places for those nurses to work in the hospital that aren't vaccinated and don't have natural immunity. There's plenty of jobs in the hospital I could find for those folks whether or not with at-risk people. But on the other hand, every patient's had the opportunity to be vaccinated. But you made an exception here. Yes, the newborns have not. So I think I would pick and choose. And then where do we stop? And what about hepatitis vaccine? Should we be requiring those for everybody? You should be just as scared about hepatitis as you are from the coronavirus, probably more so. So I hear you loud and clear. It's hard to come up with a one size fits all, but you could choose a hospital where that was the case to have your baby. I think you could find a hospital that would accommodate your wishes, and that's what Americans do. But I really think that acknowledging natural immunity, and it's way more than just the antibody level. There's T-cell immunities. There's so many other parts to immunity we don't understand. But I do think that when it's all said and done, that we're going to find that natural immunity has better long-lasting protection than the vaccines do.
Okay,
People are
but
going to take this booster every 6 months to keep these vaccines.
Having said this, I think you should make clear for the record so that my audience it doesn't have a false impression. You want people vaccinated, right? You're a physician, and that make your objective known.
Yeah, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity because we do go down that one direction. But I've been vaccinated. My parents have been vaccinated. I fought to get my parents their booster shot. I fought with the FDA going back 3 or 4 months ago to make the booster shot available. Let doctors make the choice for high-risk people to get that boosters 3 months ago. We would have saved tens of thousands of lives across America if we would have got the booster shot in those senior citizens before the Delta variant went out. But I think it's an individual choice. I don't believe in federal mandates on this issue. I think that the benefit and risk are totally different for my 83-year-old parents than for my 6-year-old grandson, right? So yes, I would encourage all your listeners to get the vaccine. And if they have questions, please call your doctor's office and talk to them about the pros and cons of the vaccine. But boy, if you're overweight, you better go get the vaccine. If you're a senior citizen, I'm sure you've already got it.
I really appreciate you dropping by, Dr. Marshall, Senator Marshall. Thank you so much, and come back again, okay?
Michael, thanks for having me. Have a great weekend.